The state of the GOP presidential race. Next up with our friend Steve Hayes of the Weekly Standard and Fox News Channel. What the heck is going on, Steve?
Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. This has been a fun one to watch, hasn't it?
It has been so interesting. You know, every time you think you have a grip on what's coming next, you're throwing the proverbial curveball, and the opposite of what you expect happens. So I expect Ron Paul to win the debate tonight, to sweep Super Tuesday, take the delegate lead.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. It is really. It's incredible going on right now. And how much trouble is Romney in Michigan? Really, that's the big story that will be answered obviously Tuesday night. But what's your take on that right now?
You know, I don't think he's in that much trouble, to be honest with you. I think he's had enough time in Michigan to actually watch Rick Santorum rise there, largely on the strength of his appeal to conservative voters in the western and northern part of the state, while Romney's base of support is in and around Detroit and the suburbs and exurbs there. But I think, you know, Romney's super PAC has been on the air quite a bit in Michigan with attack ads against Rick Santorum. Now you've got Ron Paul on the air, very interestingly, on the air in Michigan, a state where he didn't look like he was going to compete, where he's at distant third place. Running ads that echo almost to the word the critiques that the Romney campaign has been making of Rick Santorum, with not an insignificant buy in Michigan as well. So I think, you know, you've seen Santorum climb to lead some of the polls in Michigan. I think the PPP poll that had him of 15 points in Michigan was a bit of an outlier, probably was never really that strong a lead, but I think he was up, and now you're seeing level out, and at this point, they look like they're about even.
You know, Ron Paul was on with us recently and acknowledged that that there was coordination going on with the Romney campaign. That's interesting in light of what you're just saying with the, you know, Paul ads, going after. Why would Ron Paul align with Mitt Romney?
Well, this is, I think, one of the big and enduring and undercovered stories of GOP primary. I mean, you've got what is a de facto alliance. I mean, it really is. I'd be very interested in seeing the transcript of what Ron Paul told you. I've read other places where his campaign manager, Jesse Benton, acknowledged that senior campaign staff for Ron Paul talked to senior campaign staff for Mitt Romney at least once a week. They coordinate schedules. I believe that's a direct quote. They coordinate schedules. They talk about the campaign. It's very clear that the two men get along. They like each other. The wives like each other. But I think there's something more going on there, and it would just be interesting to know, you know, is this a real alliance? I mean, certainly Ron Paul has done a lot of Mitt Romney's dirty work. At every time you've had a non-Romney candidate surface and get some steam, Ron Paul has been the first person out there to do some of the attacking, whether it was Rick Perry, whether it was Newt Gingrich, now it's Rick Santorum. And, you know, you could argue that in terms of ideology, nobody's further away from what Ron Paul believes than Mitt Romney is.
No kidding. And, you know, there's something smelly in this whole way they operate. It's almost transactional. They did it with Tim Pawlenty. Early on, co-opted him, promised to raise him money. They've written a lot of checks. And I know that happens.
Right.
But, you know, it seems to be. And meanwhile, I'll tell you, we had Rick Santorum out here last week. I've never seen anything like it, ever. We had him in the middle of the oil patch, and we had him in Fargo. And, I invited him when I was in South Carolina, and others have invited him. He came, and the passion and the fire in people's belly was unbelievable. And I contrast that with soaking up every moment of Mitt Romney at CPAC just to kind of detect, and I get no passion. I get no enthusiasm. He's kind of going to be the guy, but there's really just we're going through the motions kind of deal here. So, you wonder if that isn't why Rick Santorum's being carpet bombed and what role Ron Paul's playing in that. It seems a little smelly to me.
It does. I mean, look, you can make an argument if you believe, and I think this is not, and I don't think it's likely, but I don't think it's impossible, as you're hearing from so many of these know-it-alls in Washington. There's no way we could go to a Republican convention without somebody having the requisite number of delegates to actually have the nomination in hand. I think it's entirely possible that we could go to a Republican nomination without anybody having those 1144 delegates. And, in this case, you could make an argument that what the Romney team is doing, it is transactional, but you could make an argument that it's good politics. If Ron Paul comes to the convention with a few hundred delegates and Mitt Romney happens to be a few hundred delegates short, well, the fact that they've had this relationship all along, and this has been transactional at every moment. Why would we think that Romney's people wouldn't say, "Hey, look, we will give you, a key speaking slot"? I suspect it would take something more, but there would be some sort of a deal in the works getting way ahead of ourselves.
I think I made this prediction on Twitter some time ago. Rand Paul is Secretary of Treasury or something, Ron Paul's in this obviously for Rand Paul, so maybe there's some, but here's the deal though. I think that, the more transactional that is, the more you sort of, and I agree with you, it's good politics, it's people in a room thinking about how we got to do to win this and get across the finish line. But you know what? If you're out carpet bombing people like Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, who are inspiring a great passion in people who want to take this country back, I think you do a great, bit of harm to our ultimate chances against Obama in November.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think it's now clear. I mean, I've thought this for quite a while, and I think I was viewed for a little bit there as sort of the skunk at the garden party. I don't think this is a strong field. I think Rick Santorum has done incredibly well. I think he has turned out to have been a better candidate than a lot of us thought that he was going to be. I think he still has, there are still concerns about electability with Rick Santorum in a general election, although not nearly as much as some of the people in Washington, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side, would suggest. But, if you take the field, big picture look at the field, I think there are a lot of so-called conservative stars who didn't run.
Right, and it is what it is at this point, but I mean, that's a debate we're certainly going to have. I have to tell you, I want to apologize to Rick Santorum after seeing the reaction from people and hearing him. I mean, he was out here, he soaked up so much information about energy, he took it to the Detroit Economic Club, he's holding up Bakken Shale, he's connecting with people on family. I mean, you don't fix the family, you fix nothing in this country. This whole idea of, he's a social conservative and we got to talk about the economy, that's crazy. In my view, absolute crazy, because what's evoking passion is his message, and it's a family-centric message, and is made in the USA. He's pitch perfect right now, and if you could see how people react, I'm going to send you a link to some of his events in North Dakota last week. Just watch how people are reacting to the guy and watch how he's listening. I'm pretty amazed, and as I say, there was a time I thought no chance, none. But when I hear him, I actually think he's got a better leg up in invoking the passion of people to walk on broken glass for him than Mitt Romney ever would.
Yeah, I mean, having spent a good bit of time with him in Iowa and having spent time with him now in South Carolina and New Hampshire and Florida, some of these other places, I completely agree with you. And the thing that I think Rick Santorum has that actually none of the other candidates have, and I mean Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, nor Ron Paul, is there is sort of this guy could be my next-door neighbor feel about Rick Santorum. He talks from the podium as if he's talking to a group of 8 people in a living room, and you feel like you're actually having a conversation with him, and I think that style really befits his candidacy and his message. I don't disagree with you on certainly on the substance of the point that you're making about the importance of the family. I do think he's got to be careful, just as a matter of emphasis.
Well, and also the media. We know how they're going to react. Great stuff, Steve. As always, thanks.